2002 Nissan Silvia S15 Spec-R with the V-Spec package. My guys are out here in Japan, Mount Fuji in the background, and this is a car that was only offered in Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, but since it came out, or rather the model years were 1999 to 2002, the 25-year rule now applies to these models. At least if you go with the 99 and the 2000s, you can import these to the US. And the question today is, does it live up to the hype? We of course got the S14, the S13, 240SX, but they never made more than 155 horsepower in the States because we didn't get the proper SR20 DET. That's a turbocharged inline four-cylinder making 247 horsepower, 203 pound-feet of torque. Now the Spec-R is the one you want because the Spec-S had a naturally aspirated engine. They mentioned the SR20 DE, there's no T for turbo, and that one only made 163 horsepower. The owner of this, with the mods, the tune, the intake, exhaust, etc., thinks this is making closer to 270 or 280 at the crank. And speaking of the owner, this is actually from NRT Rent-A-Car, so you can drive this exact same car. I highly recommend it. You fly into Narita Airport, Narita rather than Haneda. The NRT Rent-A-Car location is right there next to the airport. They'll pick you up, drop you in the car, and then you're off. It's a smaller company. It's only a few guys running it. They've been around for about 2 years. And these are the guys you want to work with. They're not going to try to nickel and dime you. You get a couple small scratches and stuff. They're very understanding. They want to share the love of Japanese sports cars, and it shows. They'll even let you do parade laps. Like I'm at Fuji Speedway Hotel right now, and I could take this on track and do parade laps. No other rental car company will let you do that. However, if you want to do full at-speed lapping, then they do offer 4 of their own track days through their organization where you'll be able to drive their cars and they'll be out there with you as well. And if you guys want to try it out yourself, either the S15 or any of their other JDM cars, then use the code Jabal. You'll get 5% off your next booking. So some other things about the Spec-R over the Spec-S. The Spec-R gave you a 6-speed manual rather than the 5-speed manual of the Spec-S. Although keep in mind, both could have been done with a 4-speed automatic, but why would you ever do that? It also has larger anti-roll bars and strut bracing. This strut brace in the trunk is actually factory. It is stock, which when I first saw it, I thought it was aftermarket. You also get upgraded brakes, 4-piston in the Spec-R versus 2-piston in the Spec-S, which is hilarious because looking at these, they look woefully inadequate. But you have to remember, this was the late 90s and early 2000s. So this car only weighs around 2,740 pounds. Now the Spec-R also came with a helical LSD standard, whereas the Spec-S and also prior generations of Silvia, the S14, S13, etc., had a viscous LSD. Now, a viscous LSD is going to have more immediate locking. It's going to be better for drifting, but a helical LSD is actually better if you're trying to do grip performance driving on track. So the reason why a viscous LSD is better for drifting is that you have more progressive engagement. It doesn't immediately lock and unlock, it's more progressive, and it has this more predictable breakaway. So you don't have this sudden engagement and disengagement like clutch-type LSDs. But the downside is that you have a lag in response. So it requires a wheel speed difference first to occur to then lead to a wheel lockup, meaning they don't provide immediate torque transfer when you're trying to exit a corner. Again, not optimal if you're trying to do grip performance driving. Now, a viscous LSD has these series of plates that are in this high viscosity fluid, and it relies on heat to actually help with the engagement disengagement. So one of the downsides is that you can have overheating issues with it and also need a little bit more maintenance and TLC with it. Now, the helical LSD here in the Spec-R, like a Torsen, uses this planetary gear set. Then you have instant immediate torque transfer, and since there's no high viscosity fluid, you're not having differential performance based on temperature. It's always going to be consistent. It's better under braking because helical LSDs don't lock under braking. There's no maintenance required, etc., etc. But the main thing is that it's harder to predict when in slides because they require traction to work. They don't lock fully. So in a drift where both wheels they've lost traction, you actually essentially have an open diff. Now, the V package was a special edition for the 2002 model year. Nothing really performance related. It was offered on both the Spec-R and Spec-S and gave you these exclusive front seats, this special CD player, privacy glass, and some xenon headlights. Now, in terms of mods, we have D-Works coilovers, Varis carbon bonnet, Apexi exhaust, and Sport Cat, a Nardi steering wheel, and a tune. And getting into the interior, very 90s JDM. Now this is actually factory, which is hilarious, right? It shows you how Nissan was positioning and targeting this car. Definitely for the tuner crowd, they had the GTR up top, they had the 300ZX, and then they had this S15. This was more the entry level, definitely the most attainable out of the three, although current prices, especially for a Spec-R, don't feel very attainable. It's funny though, because they've added a boost gauge here and also boost gauge here, which is pretty awesome. Oil temp, water temp, aftermarket gauges, 6-speed manual, mechanical handbrake, love that. And one small little nitpick here is that I prefer when the spokes of the wheel go at 9 and 3. This is like 930 and 230, so then if I want to hold it at 9 and 3, it's like not fully optimal. Very small nitpick. Clutch engagement is super low and very sharp, so when you first get into the car, you're going to be a little rougher as you transition between gears or even just get it starting from a stop, but then you adjust to that. We have hydraulic steering, McPherson strut front suspension, multi-link in the rear. Redline at 7,200 RPM. Very turbocharged engine. You get all the whooshes, the whistles, and of course that glorious flutter as well. We're on 225 low grip tires, these eco tires, and it's also super cold, so we're not gonna go too crazy today. Want to have this car back to NRT Rent-A-Car in one piece. Woohoo! That is why we are not gonna push it too much. It's been cold, and that was a high sphincter tone moment. The engine has a very stereotypical 90s JDM turbo feel to it. Not just the sounds, but the power delivery. A good amount of lag, even at the higher rev range, which is part of the excitement on the character, but then mid-corner, you can get a rush of power and then whoops, the back end can slip. Steering has a little bit of slop to it, actually like a moderate amount of slop. Hydraulic steering. Decent amount of feedback. And a slower ratio, because back then they weren't trying to make these cars feel artificially responsive. Front end is not the sharpest, and even though the suspension is on the firmer side, you can tell it's a little bit crashy, right? I mean, this car does have 100,000 kilometers on the odometer. Oh man, heel toe is actually really challenging because the brake pedal goes quite deep, and then when you try to flip and hit the throttle, it's like digging into the side of your foot. So you need to kind of like heel toe like this, or really slide your foot up, like vertically up on the brake pedal so that you can get your heel over and hit the throttle correctly. It also doesn't like to be rushed between shifts. You can see it's not quite rev hang, but it's just slow to reduce in revs. This is a car that, it's the complete opposite of like a modern Porsche, where a modern Porsche is just automatic, you hop in it, everything is one-to-one, all the inputs, but here, you need to think about everything. You have to be a little more intentional when you go for the heel toe. The brakes, they feel very period correct in the sense that they're a bit softer with a softer initial bite, and then when you start pushing it into it more, it's a more gradual build. It's fine in terms of resolution, but not the sportiest brakes. Seats are decently supportive, especially for stock. Remember, the V-Spec seats are different than the regular ones. drive it. It's got so much character. It's not a car that falls into the background. It's a car that has you engage with it intentionally, moment by moment. The clutch engagement, the shifting needs to be slower, the heel toe as an example, even the steering, right? Because you have that little bit of slop, it's not quite as direct and one-to-one. Transmission is nice and light throws, fairly mechanical, and not too long. Actually feels pretty good, even by modern standards. I remember as a kid playing a ton of Gran Turismo 1 through 5, and they had this red HKS S15 that I thought was so cool. And I'd constantly be drifting that. I think it was Gran Turismo 5. So thrilled to finally be behind the wheel of an S15. When you guys do come to Japan, you need to have a phone mount. This is what I use to navigate. Actually, it's magnetic, wireless charging, and they actually already give you the cigarette lighter adapter, but it comes with one as well, in case the car you're renting doesn't have a USB port. And that way when you're getting lost and you don't read Japanese, it makes things much easier. You can find the exact one I use linked below. I've talked about this in previous videos as well, but having that challenge adds to the fun. And when I say that challenge, I mean, if you guys know about flow states, right? You don't want things to be too easy. You don't want things to be too difficult. You want them to be at that sweet spot, because that's when you're most likely to get into a flow state. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get into a flow state every time you drive. But what I am saying is that you oftentimes find enjoyment when you are challenged just the right amount. So when you come to Japan and you're driving on the wrong side of the road, and you're also sitting in the opposite side of the car, dude, the etiquette here is so good. Thank you. What's up, R32? So many sick cars up here on Hakone Skyline. So with that little bit of difficulty, that learning curve, it adds to the excitement. It adds to the level of presence you have. You need to focus on what you're doing because you're driving on the other side. You don't read the language, the signs. It's a little bit more confusing. Again, the more you do it, this is my third time driving in Japan. I've also driven in Cape Town and India and UK. It starts getting more and more easy, more and more normal. But then you drive a car like this, the S15, which again forces you to be present. It forces you to not just drive automatically. You need to be intentional with your inputs. You need to be patient with the throttle. You need to be mindful of the turbo lag, especially mid-corner on a slippery surface, right? That just adds to the drama, the experience, the fun. Look at this. Mount Fuji, Hakone Skyline, R32 in front of me. Driving an S15, life is good. You guys can do the exact same thing I'm doing through NRT Rent-A-Car. Link to them down in the description. Really like these guys because they're true car enthusiasts. They want to spread the love. And if you love cars like this, if you love analog, front engine, rear wheel drive, or really just any JDM sports car, we're going to be driving an EK9 soon. You gotta make a trip out here. It is so iconic. I was hooked after the last time we did the Honda S660 review, which you can find linked below. That was a ton of fun. That was almost a year ago. And of course I'm back doing the same thing in a different car. You have to jab the throttle a bit harder here to rev match because with the turbo engine and the little bit slightly laggier throttle response as a result, which is natural, again, you have to be more intentional. You have to be a little bit more present. It's all vibes, man. It's all vibes. car that has 100,000 kilometers on the odometer, it's in pretty good condition. These guys are also mindful to keep the cars in good working order, to not have them feel tired out and worn out. Suspension was actually just refreshed recently, but keep in mind, with that McPherson strut front suspension, you do compromise the ride quality. That's just an inherent design flaw with McPherson strut, although it helps with packaging. And these coilovers as well do give you pretty good body control for this kind of vehicle, but yeah, it is a little bit harsh, especially at initial impact. Still such a joy to drive. And luckily Japan does have pretty good roads. Look how smooth and pristine this road surface is. And there you have it, my friends. 2002 Nissan Silvia S15. What a treat to finally get behind the wheel. And by the way, this has a turbo timer, so it's at 30 seconds. So if I were to let off the clutch in gear, it would stall. So we're gonna let it run in neutral for the next 19 seconds. That's because you don't want to get the turbo hot and then turn the car off all of a sudden. It did not disappoint. Obviously, it drives much closer to the contemporary period. It feels like a car that is 20 plus years old. The technology, the drivetrain, the inputs, that's a big part of the fun and part of the joy. Our friends, let me know what you think of the S15 with a comment down below. Much love, and I'll see you all in that next one.